if this report is true, the 49ers may be moving on from a key starter. And I'm not sure I'm a fan of the move whatsoever, but in this video, we are breaking down the latest around some key starters for this 49ers roster. Hit subscribe if you're looking for daily 49ers content. But Fred Warner he was immense this year. He had an incredible year considering the injury, considering everything that played out, the guys that he had to work with. It didn't always look his best this season, to be fair, especially post-injury. But when we began to dive in and see what he was doing behind the scenes and the amount of work he was doing to make up for some of the guys on the field with him, i.e. Devondre Campbell, at times D. Winters, you cannot say that Fred Warner had a bad year. You look at the PFF grade, it tells the same kind of story. Fred Warner was immense, and he's continuing to be the 49ers standout Mike linebacker for a reason. When Dre Greenlaw came back, it was a huge adjustment. The 49ers looked different on defense when Dre came back. And the 49ers looked like, for that very, very short window of time, like we had found the defense we had been missing all season long. There may have been reports, there have been reports, I don't know if it's true, that Fred Warner is getting a restructure / extension this summer to free up some more money. And the pontification, of course, is that money is to go to namely Dre Greenlaw, to keep him in red and gold. The Niners desperately need a quality will linebacker. If we learned anything this season, we learned how badly the 49ers desperately need a strong will linebacker, a guy that the 49ers can count on. We hoped it would be Devondre Campbell. It clearly wasn't. Well, a new report out of ESPN, the coverage, by the way, coming from David Bonilla of 49ers Web Zone, links Jamie Sherwood of the Jets to the 49ers. Now, Jamie Sherwood was a Mike linebacker the majority of this season. He played, of course, in a solid system in that 4-3 defense. He's the 6th highest ranked free agent linebacker, which is interesting when you think about where he came from. We'll get to that in a second. And before we look at the fit, we need to talk about the linebacking position group as a whole. I'm not 100% sold on this idea whatsoever. But when you look at the 49ers linebacker core from this season, there's some interesting stuff that plays out. And then we can get into who he is and what this actually means for the 49ers. So let's look at D. Winters real quick, okay? So just looking through the guys, you have Fred Warner, who had a standout season. The next best linebacking player, according to the grades, was Dre Greenlaw, but he only played for this much of a game, not even. And so that obviously is a factor. Then you have, let's see here, Tatum Bethune, who is the next highest ranked player, linebacker, and he only had 52 snaps. Jalen Graham was the next highest after that, only had 37 snaps. You get down eventually to, I think next would be D. Winters, who did play a fair amount. He got 400 snaps. That's pretty good for the sophomore, right? That was a sophomore season, I believe. And then, everything else after that is a little bit crazy. You have, of course, Demetrius Flannigan-Foles, but he was rough when he was out there, not great this season. And we won't even get to the drama about why he claimed he didn't play well. Would have loved to have Curtis Robinson this season. It sounds like the 49ers are going to try and keep him around, which I think would be really nice considering just the story of what he gave up to stay with the 49ers. Devondre Campbell had a terrible season, but did play a great chunk of the season, getting 719 snaps, the second most to Fred Warner's nearly 1,000 snaps that Fred Warner played, which is outstanding. When you look at I know they're just grades, but when you look at the overall grades, just to kind of get a feel for where would Sherwood kind of line up with these guys, Sherwood would be the 3rd highest rated linebacker had he played all of the things he did for the Niners, okay? The interesting thing to me, though, is if you take Dre Greenlaw out, because Greenlaw only got out there for 34 total snaps in the season. If you take Dre Greenlaw out and say a minimum of a couple hundred snaps or something, I mean, he's definitely the best. He would have been the best linebacker per grade. So the weird thing for me is it comes into the fit. So let's learn a little bit more. For those of you that don't know a whole lot about this guy, let's get into some of the details on him and what actually happened. So General Manager John Lynch, this is David Manila writing here, may look to bolster the linebacker room this offseason. I think it's a necessary move. I don't even think it's a may bolster. It's a for sure thing. And ESPN insider Jeremy Fowler recently listed the 49ers as a potential destination for New York Jets linebacker Jamien Sherwood. Okay. Here's what he said. 3 different personnel evaluators brought up Sherwood to me unprompted when discussing the free agency class. Watch for Atlanta, which features a lot of former Jets staffing, or San Francisco, where former Jets coach Robert Saleh now runs the defense. Keep going. According to Pro Football Reference, Sherwood had a breakout 2024 campaign, leading his team with 158 tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and 3 passes defensed in 17 games, 16 starts. Sherwood can play downhill with speed, cutting off the ball and pursuing the edges, and I see coverage upside here too. Sherwood is a 3-down player with special teams coverage ability, and his best football is ahead of him. Okay, he's 25 years old, so just a couple years younger than Dre Greenlaw for comparison. I think that's the guy we really need to be thinking about for comparison. So he's got a little bit of life there too. Played a lot this season, which is nice. You need a guy who's healthy, and the 49ers desperately needed a healthy guy. But where's the fit? And I put 5'3" D. Winters up on the screen for a reason. I don't see how this works out. It's either, in my mind, you're either saying, I believe that we're not going to be able to keep Dre for some reason, and so we're going with Sherwood, and he's Dre Greenlaw's replacement. Or if he's not Dre Greenlaw's replacement and you're bringing Dre back, who will be the will, you're paying, we'll talk about the money, the actual numbers in a second, for a Sam. And you're bumping a guy like D. Winters, who would be next on the list, who the 49ers are eager to keep around. The 49ers want D. Winters to continue developing. I don't believe that they loved everything they saw out of him this season. Would have liked to see more. I think that's completely fair. However, he still has time left on his contract, so we're not getting rid of D. Winters. He's not going anywhere. So this is where I think the situation and the comparison to the 49ers gets kind of weird, because now you're either looking Dre Greenlaw as Dre Greenlaw's replacement as your starting will linebacker who's going to get a lot of snaps this season, or you're looking at the Sam and you're looking at a guy who's going to get half as much, just like D. Winters did, because, well, different for D. Winters because this season was weird and injuries and guys moving out. But your third linebacker being the guy that's switching out in nickel packages. So he's in and he's out and he's in and he's out. Does the money make sense for that move, for one? And for two, does he want that move? Is he going to make the move to the Niners knowing he's probably just a guy who's going to be switching in and out all the time? So I think this is a really interesting one. Let's get into kind of what this would actually look like. See if there's actually a fit here. So PFF projects that his contract would be 2 years, $7.75 million AAV. So that's $8 million guaranteed and a $15 million deal total. Okay. Now, you know how cap hits work into all that, whatever. We'll forget about that for a New York minute. PFF listed on his ranking as a free agent, Sherwood's emergence as a safety to linebacker convert was a rare bright spot in a disappointing year for the team from top to bottom. If the presumed departure and or retirement of Mosley comes to fruition, perhaps Sherwood could stick around heading into 2025. So the Jets have a reason to keep him around, of course. But they'll have to pay up for it. To compare the projected contract, I put Dre Greenlaw's back on the screen, which we haven't looked at in a few days. But Greenlaw is projected for a 1 year, probably because of injuries. People don't want to take a big shot at him and give him a bigger contract than that. A 1 year, $6 million deal, $5 million guaranteed is the projection. So when you look at Sherwood, okay, and you look at Greenlaw, and I believe that Greenlaw is a better player. I believe that Greenlaw is a better fit for the Niners overall, I think Greenlaw has his place quite figured out, and he brings something that the Niners absolutely need. Like, no disrespect to saying things like downhill. We know what it looks like to see downhill players. We see them every single season. And yes, Greenlaw is for sure one of those kinds of players. He's a mean machine, and we need a mean machine, okay? And when I look at the numbers, if the projections are accurate or even close to accurate, you're looking at a guy who would be coming in, and if he's replacing Greenlaw, he costs more, to which I would argue, shouldn't you keep Greenlaw around? Or the big, monkey in the room, let's say, would be, can Dre Greenlaw stay healthy? That's the real question. If you're going with Sherwood, my gut is that the Niners are choosing to go with a guy who has been healthy recently, has not dealt with injuries recently, and so you're going with a guy who's a little bit younger. You're paying for that a little bit, and you're getting a guy who you think is probably going to stay healthy for you, or your concerns about Greenlaw's health are too big to keep him around. I don't see a world in which the Niners are getting both of these guys. That's not going to happen, I don't think. But let's just say for a second it did. Then you're in a weird spot with the other dudes on the team, namely D. Winters for sure. But, then you've got other guys. Tatum Bethune, we've talked a lot about. Jalen Graham, we've talked about over time. So Flanagan Foles, who no disrespect to Flanagan Foles. I mean, I think his special teams, the special teams nature of what he does for the Niners is probably a big part of the reason why the 49ers love him so much. But I just didn't see a lot as a player, as a linebacker. I didn't see a lot to feel super confident in him, like stepping into that role and being that guy that you can count on and rely on. So for the price, what's the upgrade? For me, I suppose the only upgrade would be health. And that's a dangerous game to play because there's no minute of football any one of these players is guaranteed. Injuries are happening constantly. If we learned anything this season, it's that injuries are a reality. And I'm just not sure about the deal, but I want to know where you guys are at on the deal. Let me know in the comments, do you feel like this is the kind of guy the Niners need to be moving for? Robert Saleh, I'm sure, loved him. So if he's going to go anywhere, I could see him going to the Niners in terms of, that opportunity to stay in a similar system with Robert Saleh. I don't know. I'm not super confident in this move. I think it could be a good move. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a great player, and I think there's huge value there. It's just a weird fit for me. It's a weird situation, considering the opportunity we still have to re-sign Greenlaw. And I would think if the numbers are the same, Greenlaw would choose to come back to the Bay Area. That's just my gut. I think he wants to play with the Niners. I think he wants to stay with Fred. That's how I feel about it. That's just a feeling. But let me know what you think in the comments on this one. This one's fascinating, and I don't know which key starter, to go back to kind of my title of the video. Like, I don't know which key starter would be on the chopping block necessarily, but somebody's on the chopping block, namely probably Dre Greenlaw, which is a bummer. I would rather see him wearing red and gold. That's where I stand. Look forward to seeing where you stand in the comments. Appreciate you and hope you have a fantastic weekend.